It's tragic, really.
Shirley, are you here?
We all have a story.
We are contacting 911 for you.
A dark secret wrapped in emptiness and regret.
Quite frankly, I'm glad I did it.
You know.
They took her life.
They just can't prove it.
The toll. I'm Nancy Simpson. A few years ago, it was time to take a road trip. It was right before Halloween. I have a group of buddies I call ambulance friends. EMTs, nurse types, citizens emergency response members. If I were to get a cut, a well-prepared group for sure. We divided up, piled into cars, and started down mostly the old Route 66 trail, making stops to supposed haunted or creepy spots across the Ozarks along the way. The main goal? To give my daughter some Halloween-inspired fun. I bought a big black-rimmed hat for the occasion adorned with a spider pin, just out to have a good time with friends. I'm in a car with my friend, Cassie Mills.
It started out as, it's October, it's fall, let's see what ghost legends we can go find. And there was just lots of conversation, and on the way home, it was almost like we now knew enough about what each other thought about this that we were comfortable sharing. Because you can't just walk up to everybody and say, hey, guess what I saw? And expect them to not laugh at you. Because some people are scared of it, or some people don't want to think about it, or some people just flat out don't believe in it. So you're not just going to randomly say that. So we started talking about things that you had seen and things that I had seen, which pretty much limits my experience to what I saw in that house. And you jumped in with your connection to that. It was like, okay, we can talk about this because, yeah, you don't announce to the whole world, hey, guess what? I see creepy things. You don't. Strictly based on my religious upbringing, you lived, you died, you went to heaven, or you went to hell. That was it. There were no other options. But pretty sure there's other options. Too many things happen that you have to think about. And it scared me, and I didn't want to think about it. But it really doesn't scare me anymore. She doesn't scare me. She was always nice.
She, in her mind, is Shirley Jane Rose. Cassie started telling me the story of a ghost that haunted her old workplace at a house on Scenic. I chime in, whoa, you're talking about my friend's cousin, Shirley Jane Rose. Yeah, it turns out that's the one. So at this point, I have a whole other level of intrigue.
I had gone for a job interview at DeLong Heating and Air. And during my interview, the owner asked me, are you afraid of ghosts? And people don't ask you that kind of stuff in job interviews. So my answer was, no, I don't believe in ghosts because they're not real. And that was the end of it, and didn't think a whole lot of it. And then I went to work there a week later, and I had to think about what I saw over the 5 years that I worked there, and it changed my mind.
How so?
My first day there, my office was upstairs, and being in an old house, it had storage and closets under the eaves. And the very first day, they came upstairs and they told me, okay, when you open these closet doors and you go in there, you have to make sure that you have like a big heavy box of paper there because they will shut behind you and you can't open them from the inside. Whoever had that office before me had that happen to her on several occasions. She would go into these closets, and even if she put something light in front of the doors, it would shut behind her. And it wasn't a regular door handle. It was more of the really old-fashioned latch. And I thought, okay, in my logical head, I'm thinking, old house, it's settled, it's uneven. Of course, you can open doors and they're going to shut. It's what old houses do. But I think that just kind of set the tone. And several weeks later, they said, hey, you want to see the videotape? Like, sure, whatever. Show me the videotape.
Let's pause here. Either you believe in this stuff or you don't. I totally get that and respect it. I am also very aware that this is a real family and community that has suffered a very real loss. I know this. My experience with anything weird on this level consists of a man with a booming voice saying hi there, waking me up and prompting my mom to come running into the living room from a deep sleep when I was little. My dog was barking like crazy at nothing in the shower one time. My son said he had a friend named Jennifer who spent some time with him in his room, and once his cradle started rocking for no apparent reason. Nothing earth-shaking here, folks. That was my contribution in the car that day.
I was trying really hard to not roll my eyes actually at you. Inside, they were just rolling so hard. I'm just like, oh, a ghost story, huh? That's sad you believe that. I was just such a hater. I was just like, I thought Nancy was so great, but now she believes in ghosts. Like, this is going to be rough. But the weirdest part about it, too, is I'm not even fully committed that I don't believe in ghosts. I kind of do. It's just, I suppose I was hoping it was all about the hard facts and the hard-hitting evidence. And something about there being a ghost element is nearly just silly to me. But that being said, going with you to it and being part of the experience, it was like, okay, I get it. And I have definitely backed off. And in telling people about the podcast, whenever I mention that, people are really interested.
That's the element they want to talk about.
Yeah, I have definitely learned that more people believe in that stuff than I thought. I'm actually on the rarer side. And like I said, I don't even not believe in it. I kind of do. So it's weird that I had such a harsh line on it.
And I think what sold me, and not in believing in ghosts, because I don't know how I feel about that. It's just meeting Molly and Gary and Jennifer and seeing their passion and hearing their stories. Like, I was just like, it doesn't matter what I believe. They have experienced this. This is what they believe.
That, I think, is what affected me as well, because it is the toll. It's a perfect example of it. And meeting them, they 100% believed it. I kind of thought it would just be something where, oh, we have this neat story we pass down, and it's kind of a joke. But it didn't feel like a joke to me. It felt like they were serious.
Cassie's story, the first I'd heard of this, involves a videotape. Again, not trying to sway you into believing in ghosts at all. But what you can connect with is the passion these people have. People who have spent time in a house that Shirley Jane Rose once called home. They believe. And that's what we're talking about here. Okay, back to Cassie.
This house had originally had a basement. So somebody hand dug the basement out and built walls down there out of stone. So there was one metal door into it. There were no windows. There were no vents. There was nothing else. It was a solid basement. And there were cellar type steps down to the basement level. That's where a lot of the equipment was and where the surveillance cameras and the videotapes were. So they put this video in and you see pitch black, and then you see the door opening and the light switch go on. You see the secretary walk all the way across the basement into the back corner, switch out the videotapes, come back to the door, the lights go out, and the door shuts. And it's pitch black in there again because there is no other light source. The blackness hadn't come back completely for more than 5-6 seconds when out of the wall you see this almost a candlelight glow. It was a very soft light, and in this light you see a young girl, and she's got dark hair and bangs cut straight across her forehead, and it's very vivid that she's wearing a dark pinafore and a white Peter Pan collar. And it was long enough. It wasn't one of those things where you, oh, did I see that out of the corner of my eye? It's a little blur. It wasn't that. It was long enough to see the details of what this was. It was a little girl wearing a pinafore.
Producer Jay is going to be like, what's a pinafore? Okay, like I said, it's straps, like a jumper. It can be a dress, big rounded collar. Cassie talks about going down to that basement.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to go downstairs because I have to logic this out. And there's no way from where that soft light started and that figure was, it's a stone wall. It's a handmade stone wall. There's no way anything could have come out of there, or there wasn't a crack in there that light could have shone through, anything like that. And then they handed me the file folder that had the newspaper stories about Shirley Rose and some of her pictures and things like that. And there was a picture in one of the articles that was published of her wearing a pinafore with the straight bangs across her face. And it was, in the picture, it was blue and white with the rounded Peter Pan collar. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. You've got it, yeah. And I didn't want to hear about it or think about it for quite a while, because that just kind of changes the whole way you think about things.
She also talks about the little things that started happening around the house, now business. How she'd turn everything off at night, come back the next morning, and there'd be numbers and dashes, some kind of date on her calculator.
There was also the day that I went upstairs and there was whiteout drawings on my desk. Someone had taken the whiteout and made a little arrow and some squiggles, and it looked like someone had tried to make a happy face. Very rudimentary, very juvenile. And those things started opening up more dialogue with them about some of the things that they had seen and they had heard.
They being the business owners. Cassie says they teased her that when her office was moved downstairs, she went down there too, meaning Shirley. Cassie talks about flower petals on the sun porch being arranged into shapes and little piles. She says that place was locked up tight at night.
The people that I work with, that's not something they joke about, because she was a real little girl and lived in their community, and they all lived there when this happened to her. And it wasn't a prank. That's not who they were. It was fully accepted that we worked in a place that had Shirley Rose, and she lived with us too. And it was just part of what we did. The only time that it really freaked me out, I remember it was November, and I was in the house by myself, and I was waiting for one of the HVAC guys to come and pick something up. So it was just getting dark, and I was sitting out in the main office. And from my office, and there's nobody else in this building, there's no speaker phones, there's no intercom systems, there's no radios, there's nothing like that. From my office, I hear a voice, and then I hear this voice call my name, and it called my name 3 times, and I was out that door. And I know it was November because it was stinking cold, and I didn't even have my shoes, and I was sitting out on the front porch, and I was like, you need to get here quick, Brian, because I am not going back in that house, and I'm not going to be there by myself. And it's not that I was really super scared of it, it's just, oh my gosh, something knows my name. And I felt, though, that she was very comfortable with me, and it was okay. But yeah, I didn't want to hear her call my name again, and that's the last time I ever spent any time in that house alone by myself, especially after dark.
Cassie says her time in that house changed her and how she feels about the afterlife.
It wasn't possible. There was no coming back to Earth. There was an absolute logical reason for everything that people talked about that went bump in the night. But now, do I think that ghosts are here? Yeah, I do. As weird as that sounds, and as weird as that is to say out loud, I honestly think that they're here. I don't think that they're big, scary, mean things. I always felt like she liked me and she was my friend and she would just hang out once in a while. It was a huge jump from there is no ghost to, hey, look, I have a pal. You know? That type of thing. Yeah.
But she didn't seem ever upset.
Never. She never did anything malicious, anything mean, anything that really was, for attention. It was more of a playful thing. Drawings. Little kids get bored and they draw. But there was never any negative feeling towards it.
Want to go to the house? Me too. So I made a phone call, grabbed producer Jay. He grabbed his camera and we headed over there. Our whole 1-minute drive from the station. Remember, it's all very close to where we work.
Okay, the house. Let's go in.
It looks on it. It really, I'm not going to say that. Obviously. I'm not going to say anything.
You're not, because you just said it.
Oh, are you really recording? Good, you should be.
I know.
That was my first instinct.
Hi. I'm Nancy Simpson with KTTS. I was supposed to meet.
Hi. Yes.
Molly DeLong. Nice to meet you. Molly, nice to meet you. This is
Gary and Molly, daughter Jennifer, and her 2 girls. Okay, let's address this right now. We have a passionate family and 2 little kids in the mix, Stella and Eloise. They are fun, amazing, and love to talk. I know this, and now you do too.
He came today to see if we could take some pictures and some video. Do you mind if he kind of follows us around? No. In some of the areas?
Gary tries to tell me he doesn't believe in ghosts. I don't believe him, not when he starts telling his stories.
First off,
okay,
we don't necessarily believe in ghosts. They're just some things that you can't explain away.
And we're fascinated by the story.
We don't want people to think we're nuts.
No hesitation.
I totally believe in
yeah, but we totally know I'm nuts.
Right after the introductions, we get right to it. Molly.
Do you want to see
see the
Cost
video
me thousands of dollars and lost of time.
It's not super great, but I've got it on my email
2 million times.
Well, no, this is one.
Well, here's the thing. You know, they honestly and truly, it all started when I bought this place from the lady, and she said, "There's spirits here," and I'm going, "Man, you've had too much of the '60s."
This is what I'm talking about, excitement. Jennifer is pulling up the videotape of the reported ghost in the basement. It used to be on a VHS tape. It's now digital. Jennifer talks us through that video.
So what we're seeing now is the secretary went down, opened the door, and it's light at that point. Is there light down there?
Yeah, there's a
Does
light.
she have to flip on a light?
It comes in after she's
She turned on
flipped
the light,
it,
closed
so
the door, and it goes dark.
but the light was on. So you see her after she's changed tape for the day and leaving.
And flips the
light's
light
on,
off.
Turns it off, shuts the door, and locks it. And then it's solid black for a few minutes, and then she comes out.
And so when we go downstairs and close the door, I'm going to see there's no light in there.
There shouldn't be any light down there, no.
Okay. Can I see it one more time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to give it a count.
In the corner, a little girl in her head, and like
She
a
has
jumper
like a little
type.
jumper thing, yeah.
Right? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
We tried to reenactment. This is a wall. So she comes out of a wall, and then she moves around, and then she's gone. This is a wall. So she's half in, half out of the wall. And we all tried to, we're like, no, it's so-and-so, just but it's black. I mean, and she's glowing green. So I don't know how you can't, we tried to redo it and you can't redo it.
It's been shown over 300 times.
Probably more than that. Oh, we would have people come from all over saying, we heard you have a ghost video.
We have the video up on our website, thetollpodcast.com. Take a look. What do you see? How the DeLongs and their business landed in this house? A tornado.
Start from the beginning. Like, I think you guys got hit by a tornado or something, and that's how you ended up here. Who wants to tell that story?
There's the pictures.
Oh, there's the pictures.
That's what was left of it.
Okay, we were in Battlefield.
40 acres under roof. We just didn't have any roof intact.
When that tornado hit in 2003, the hit Battlefield, were you here then? Okay.
Yes, I was here then. In the thick of it, remember, storm chaser. I was following the storms that night and missed the twister that hit P Highway near Clever by mere seconds. It was in a valley and I couldn't see a thing. Debris covered the road, so I had to stop. A man came running up to the station pickup and started pounding on my window. This is actual coverage from that evening.
Do take cover. This is a very dangerous situation.
Rain is just pelting down. Oh man, there's a big old piece of tin that's just blown out into the middle of Highway 60 here inside, and I feel like I'm in Twister, guys. Okay, I don't know where that piece of tin came from, but it just landed right by the mobile unit as I'm driving through Republic.
If you didn't hear earlier, we're getting reports that part of Stockton has been destroyed. Part of the downtown area has been destroyed from a tornado touchdown tonight, and we do have reports of injuries as well. Okay, Nancy Simpson, go ahead.
I'm just south of Republic. I'm on P Highway, and I think I just missed this. We need an ambulance. Can you guys back at the news center? I'm just south of Clever. A tornado has just gone through here just moments ago. It's destroyed a couple of houses, and I have a guy running up to my mobile unit, and he's saying he needs some medical assistance. So did you see what happened? There's a woman in the ditch. She needs medical assistance. That's all he can say. It's taken down. She was in the house, and she's down in the ditch. Can somebody please call Republic Rescue? I'm sorry, I'm shaking up. I just missed this tornado. There's debris and lines down across Highway P. It's just south of Republic. Trees and trees are uprooted. And you can just literally see the path where it took. Where the roofs are blown off. You can see debris. You can see one house that's completely destroyed. It's just like somebody took a roller and just rolled it across here for parts of this area. I just missed this tornado just a couple of minutes, probably not more than a minute ago, the way traffic's back.
Cedar County is now under a tornado warning. And by the way, Nancy Simpson, we are contacting 911 for you to try to get help to that lady. This is a very dangerous situation tonight, and we're seeing it firsthand. Our reporters in the field are seeing it firsthand.
Like I'm on P Highway, and the tornado had just gone through a couple of moments ago.
Numerous trees down along Highway CC in the Fremont Hills area and to the northeast of me. Morris James, KTTS Storm Team.
Don, this is something quite interesting. We just had a woman call us and tell us from the 500 block of West Tracy right here in Springfield. She said she has debris from Marionville. And I kind of laughed and said, how do you know it's from Marionville? She said it's mail. There is mail on her yard from Marionville.
We're going to try to get a hold of Nancy again. Nancy, dispatch was wanting to get some better directions. If they're listening right now, where exactly are you?
I'm on P Highway between Clever and Republic, and traffic is really backing. And everybody is showing up, trying to assess the problem, trying to figure out what the heck is going on around here. If I look off, I see two houses immediately. One is completely destroyed. The other one looks like mainly the roof has just been taken off the top. Trees down everywhere. A car mangled in the ditch.
All right, you're listening to continuing coverage at Tornado Warning.
Her name was Isla Ruth Little, and she was dead, thrown from her house by the tornado. Yes, I knew this event up close and personal. I couldn't go anywhere. Help for Isla was on the way, so I decided to get out of the KTTS mobile unit, the pickup, very carefully because of all the debris. I remember chunks of the house being everywhere, tin from a barn swaying high in the trees, creaking. So eerie. As I snapped back, I noticed people running over a hill, running and running. So with my recorder in hand, I started running with them. Where were they going? What were they doing? I finally got a guy to stop and talk to me. David Stokely, he said. Dave's horse arena has been hit by the twister and he needs help. So I asked him what kind of help, and he gave me a list. I ran back to the truck, got on the two-way, and went on live again, telling everyone that story. About 3 weeks later, David Stokely called me. He said, I don't know you, never met you, but thank you. That night, people showed up with lights, fencing, trailers. I had more vets on hand than I did injured horses, and I kept asking how they knew I needed help. And all of them said, Nancy Simpson on KTTS told us. What a moment. For him, me, the community. That's how it's supposed to work. He told me about how some of the horses that survived had grass stains on their behinds. What stories they could tell, right? Others had been too injured and had to be put down. 3 years later, in 2006, Dave's arena got hit again by a twister. So many in that area who had rebuilt their homes and lives found themselves again devastated. I remember going back to Dave's property the next day, the second time around. One of the prized horses, dead, in the drive up to the mangled arena. He was magnificent. Someone had covered his head and surrounded it with flowers. I sat down next to him on the gravel, and I cried. A good cry. All of this devastation in such a short amount of time. So many in my community losing so much. Twice. Sometimes you just need a good cry. I've never told anyone that story. I messaged David while I was writing this section, asked him what that horse's name was. Malcolm. His name was Malcolm. Several years later, a statewide news agency featured me for being a storm chaser for 20 years, a woman, that angle. When I posted a link to the story on social media, David wrote, In that night of hell, a posse of hope came to our rescue. Thank you for heading the round out to our farm. Back to Gary DeLong, the businessman who went right to work to find a new space.
That was a Sunday night, and we went in the next day, and everything was blown away. And Gary had trucks all over the place getting the windshields fixed and all so that, we could stay in business. And we didn't ever even miss any work.
A week later, he owned the house, the land, and it was zoned correctly and had plenty of space for their vehicles. The lady he bought it from?
She told me, she said, when we're signing the papers that day, because she didn't want a realtor involved. So I just got my brother to get me he was a realtor, and I got them to get me a contract, and we signed it. And when we're signing it, she says, now, I want you to know there are spirits here. And I kind of rolled my eyes and thought, yeah. And didn't pursue it any farther because, I just really didn't believe in that crap. She's just going, as a matter of fact, oh, yeah, there's spirits here.
Gary says as soon as they moved in, people started telling them, you don't want that place. And then things started to happen. Gary says it was all very strange. The one who doesn't believe in ghosts.
On her birthday, I don't believe in ghosts, but on her birthday, that alarm used to go off in that room. It's what they did 4 or 5 years in a row. And our security guy said, he said, I don't believe in that stuff, but you're going to have to do something. But she always just wanted attention. She never did anything bad that I know of. But I was in that office one time, the copy machine was sitting there, and the copy machine came on and ran a copy, and nobody was here but me. I ran in and looked, and the paper was blank. So I just got to the point where I'd say, okay, I know you're here. Yeah, you can quit.
Did that seem to work, acknowledging her?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I just think she wanted us to know she was here.
The alarm going off on her birthday, which is my birthday, Shirley's cousin being my good friend, meeting Cassie, you'll remember. When I was still trying to decide if I should tackle this, I looked at the police one sheet, the cold case flyer, and saw October 17th, the day she was taken. If you'll remember, it's also my son's birthday. I pushed ahead. Do you believe in coincidence? Fate? I just don't know. All I know is there were always these little boosts along the way to keep pushing me on. So here we are. Jennifer, Gary's daughter, tells her story. JW is her brother.
One morning I had to take J-Dub to the airport, and he had to be there at 5:30, so I thought, well, I'll just come in. And people don't get here until 6, and so I was here. It was 5:45, and I thought, well, I'll just get started on my work. And I was the only one here, and my office used to be in that room, and footsteps back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and nobody's here but me. And so finally I plugged my ears. I said, you're scaring me. Stop. It's enough. And she stopped. And then another time, I was the last one here, and I was locking up. We have up and upstairs. And I was getting ready to lock the door, and I heard somebody run up the stairs. And I thought, oh, I better go tell them that I'm getting ready to lock the door. And I got halfway up the stairs, and it dawned on me that nobody's here, or I would have heard them come in. I was the only one here. And I just ran out the door and locked it. I was done. That was it.
Molly chimes in that when Stella was younger, she came back and asked why there was a little girl with them in the conference room upstairs. A grandson declared he wasn't going back in there by himself because someone was in there with him. Molly says he has an imagination.
And we had a vase of old flowers in here, and we'd put them up. They're in the basement now, I think. But we'd put, and the next morning they'd be halfway across the room, and nobody had been here overnight. And she would just move those flowers all around.
Nothing else popped up on the security tapes, but that system wasn't around much longer. Gary says they caught who was stealing stuff. The system went digital, so no tapes and no need to check anymore. We start walking up the stairs. They are very narrow, very steep. And I tripped.
Close to the basement.
Can't guarantee its condition.
When we get up there, we see the closet where the secretary would get locked inside, the one where Cassie was like, oh, heck no, and rigged it with some tissues.
Our secretary used to have what did she have in there? File boxes or something. And she would just go in there, and then the door would shut and latch, and there's no way to open it when you're in there. So we'd hear knocking on there. I guess she's locked in there again. We'd have to go and let her out. And nobody was in there. It was just her.
And so when you couple that happening to her with ghost stories, right?
Oh, yeah. You knew something. You could feel some days she was around and some days she wasn't around.
Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to touch on, too. You didn't feel her constantly.
No. And we'd go months and nothing would happen, except her calculator would just pop these weirdest things on there, and it would have spaces and, I think you said semicolons.
And
we don't know how you get those on a calculator.
Nines, a lot of nines. 9, 3 spaces and a dot.
Maybe she was trying to tell us something.
I guess she was, but the thing is, I don't even know how you can make a space on a calculator. I guess you could. I don't know, somebody maybe could. But yeah, almost virtually every day it would have stuff on it.
I go in that closet, and I close the door. No idea what I'm doing or expecting here. I'm here, so I'll go in the closet.
Can I open this closet?
Yes. I don't even know what's in there. Probably a toy box.
And there's a train right on.
Lots of trains.
And all toys.
There's a light switch.
There you go. Can I close? And if you close this door...
we'll let you out if you want to go in there.
I do want to go in here and shut it. Thank you. Thanks for
Well,
letting
we
me.
gotta go now.
Yep, right? Jay?
Can you get it shut? I'll shut it.
Okay. Now it's just a storage.
Meh, I got nothing. We go down to the screened-in porch, a place where Cassie talked about the flowers and petals. Jennifer talks about her encounters.
Well, it's an enclosed porch, and we used it as a file storage. So we had a lot of file cabinets and a lot of plants, and there was a flower pot. I think it was right around this area, and it was, you know,
so you can tell because there's
pretty good sized. It was over here, and the plants were on the other side of the room, and somehow little red flowers had made themselves into a perfect circle around the inside of the pot, but the flowers were on the other side of the porch.
Okay, so we have a plant here.
Yes.
And we have a flower here.
Yes.
And the petals would make their way into the pot.
Yes.
In a design.
Yeah, a circle, a circular pattern. I don't know. And this plant, it didn't have anything in it. It was just dirt at the time. So it was not like it had plants growing in it. It was just dirt. Whole flowers had made their way into little circles, just like somebody had placed them in a circle.
Not petals.
No, full flower heads. Little red flowers. I think they were impatiens or begonias or something.
When you would come out here and see that, what would you think?
Personally, I didn't even notice it until Renee, who had worked here, said, "You guys have got to come out here and see this. These flowers are in this perfect circular pattern across the room from the plant." And then we were like, well, that is pretty bizarre. And I don't know how we knew that it was the same day as the death of that suspected killer, I think is what it was, that same day.
Was it only happen one time?
Yeah, just the one time.
And it was a circle?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect circle.
Perfect circle.
Is that what you guys were thinking at the time?
I didn't have a clue. You kind of try to talk yourself out of it being anything but just a coincidence. But I didn't ever make the connection until later when I didn't even know how we knew that man had died that day, which then made us think, well, maybe he wasn't the killer after all. You wouldn't think she would make a nice little flower arrangement on the death of her killer. So I don't know.
But they were flowers.
They were cute little flowers, too.
And did anybody have access to this area?
Just people that worked in the office. We keep this door locked. So, I mean, you'd have to come through the office to go through, to come out here.
Somebody said that guy had died, and I asked Dee, I said, has the ghost acted up lately? And she said, well, the other day on the porch, these flowers were kind of designed. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
At this point, people in the house have referenced suspected killer Steve Fletcher, the man accused by the community of killing Shirley Jane Rose. Fletcher died in September 2004, so that's more than a year after the DeLongs moved their business into that house on Scenic.
So you want to go to the basement?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I want to go to the basement.
On our way, we run into JW. We have a conversation about how the motion sensors would go off every couple of months, 2 or 3 times that month, and then settle down. The others laugh, saying they were too scared to drive over and check, so it was JW who'd show up, pitch black, nothing wrong, nothing touched. He'd reset the alarm and leave. He wasn't amused. Back to the basement, where the video comes from. We plot where the camera would have been, where Dee, the worker who changed the tape, walked out, where the images appear, which is in a stone wall. Jennifer.
How were you trying to recreate it?
We would come down here and turn off the light, and so you could watch the camera from upstairs. So can you see me? Am I the same? And it wasn't. I mean, there was, even how she was, there was no way to be where she was because of that rock wall. It was, and I wish those shelves weren't there so we could show you. But
and so you feel she was really coming out of the wall?
Yeah, she really was. She was, and then at a point you can see she's kind of half in and half out.
Molly, Jennifer's mom, remembers when she first saw the tape.
I remember somebody calling me and saying, you got to look at this video. There's a ghost in the basement or something. And I was like, I don't want to see it. And they're like, no, sit down and look at it. And I'm like, whatever. And I saw that, and I mean, it made my skin prickle. It was so weird. Because like Jen said, she had a jumper with a little Peter Pan collar, and you can see her little profile and her little cheek and her hair.
She looked like she had a ponytail and maybe some bangs.
Yeah. It was a lot more clear then, and I was like, I don't ever want to see that again, Well, then everybody started looking at it, and Gary was like, he would get so, get to work, and we want these people.
Once you start talking about it, of course, then everybody wants to say, well, this happened the other day, and so that's when we all kind of, the more we talked, we thought, well, maybe it's not just one of us seeing it. Because maybe I'm crazy. Am I really seeing a little girl glowing in this basement video?
Was there any more other encounters down here that were weird? It doesn't seem like you guys spent a lot of time down here.
We really didn't. Other than the Ghostbusters, they had a flashlight somewhere over there, and they had a video, and I'll try to, I think it's on somebody's email or something.
Ghostbusters? Yep. I find them too. Molly talks about the Ghostbusters. It's a paranormal team telling the DeLong family the move-in, construction on the grounds, removing trees for the business vehicles, stuff like that, likely stirred up the spirit, made it more active. Then it died down. Until one day, Molly has this memory.
Well, and it died off a lot.
It did die off. In fact, I hardly, until that one day upstairs when he handed me that thing and that spark lit. I think I was just sitting there and he looked over at me and I guess I thought something touched me because I jumped. And he said, "Why did you jump?" And I said, "Something touched me." And he said, "There was a spark right there." I didn't see the spark, but he did.
He being one of the co-owners of the business. Another memory, this one very vivid.
At one time I was at a convenience store and I don't remember why I said DeLong Plumbing, and this guy behind me said, "I know you think so-and-so murdered that little girl, but he didn't do it." And I was like, "Okay, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about." And he was just like going berserk on me, and you wouldn't think anything about that normally, but when we put it all together, it was like, this is a pretty weird deal.
Gary left as we were scouring the basement for, I don't know, just touring the basement. So I called him because I had a few more questions for him. First, I thanked him for letting us tour the house. That was super nice of him. We talk about Gary being a storyteller and how the things that happened in that house sure made for a good story. Fun to swap stories, share what was happening. But Gary's a businessman, successful businessman. And I could tell there was a toll that started to settle in at some point.
Say, I guess you could say distracting because, I mean, we had one or two that didn't want to go to the basement by themselves. It just got to be kind of a pain, I still don't think I believe in ghosts, but I'm telling you, there's so many unexplained things and things just kept happening. It would never die off and leave us alone. We had people just out of the blue drop in and start wanting to spend an hour telling me what they knew about it and what all they knew and their opinion and what they'd seen when they had been there visiting, just all kinds of things.
Gary says that's why he agreed to the paranormal group. He was hoping the spirit could be put to rest, if that's what she wanted. And that, in turn, would stop the ghost tours.
When they said that they would come in and do that, and of course, they said, "Now, if we find a ghost here, do you want us to send her under the light?" And I went, "Well, of course." I didn't want to keep anybody out of heaven, but also it'd have been nice to get rid of them. Every time that somebody would get involved, I think, well, this will dispel it because it's went on long enough. And, there are things that can't be explained. I'm not going to say none of that happened. It's just that, my goodness, it gets to be a pain. Had other things to do.
That's right. And you have a big business. So this wasn't a home. This was a place somebody could actually come through the door and like you said, spend an hour or two just trying to talk to you.
Right. And I just didn't want a lot of people looking at me going, "What are you in here talking about ghosts? Are you crazy?" That doesn't help business either.
One more thing about the supposed ghost video, which you can see for yourself at thetollpodcast.com. I'd like to say here that I have tried on several occasions to interact with Shirley's oldest sister, Joyce. I sent messages through her cousin and mailed letters. Nothing. Following one request I sent, Joyce said it was all too painful. I offered to share this video with her prior to this piece coming out. I just didn't know how I'd feel if people in the community believed this was a video of a ghost, a little girl, and that little girl they thought they were seeing was my little sister. I am very aware that this is a real family with a real loss. She may have already known about the video. I don't know. But I felt I should offer her the chance to take a look. Anyway, I haven't heard from her. The youngest sister, Shannon, messaged me back. I'll read it to you. My sister's wish is that it should not be dug up again due to the fact that people from their side of the family is so negative. I don't blame her. A lot of people believe the person responsible is now deceased, so I am not sure what can be gained. I'm not saying these people are correct. Everyone has their opinions. I was very young, but no doubt it affected me and my upbringing, good or bad. But because I was so young, many hurtful people act like it did not affect me. I messaged her back, hoping she would talk to me. The toll, right? Of course this affected her. Even if she was a toddler at the time, or especially since she was a toddler at the time, her sister was abducted and murdered. She would have played no role in that, but took in all of the consequences. I was so curious about that.
I can imagine that it would be extra frustrating because people are nearly like counting her out. Like, you don't really have any memory of it happening, so it shouldn't really bother you. And that must be really frustrating because it would just be like a child, their parent dying before they can remember. It's still going to hugely affect your life. It's just you don't have any memories of them. Just because she doesn't have the memories of it doesn't mean that the repercussions haven't been through her entire life.
Right.
And like I said, it's nearly like she's getting discounted out of it because, well, you don't remember, so surely it wouldn't affect you. And she's like, it does affect me. It affects me all the time.
And I can't imagine her listening to this story and learning from people who are telling their story and hearing things and just, wow. Yeah, the toll.
Yep. She is as solid of an example of the toll as I can think of it didn't even actually impact her life in memory, but it has affected her entire life. That is the toll.
Next time on The Toll.
I know that was their prime suspect.
But one of the victims was shot from a distance, and there were additional shots fired from either close or point-blank range.
They've all got their theories. They all think they know what happened, and sometimes they're sure of what happened, but they just can't prove it.
Did he hurt you? Turn it on if he hurt you. Was it Stephen? I didn't want to ask you that question. But we have to know. We want to know. That's why we're here. That's kind of why we're here.
They may have got a little bit of tunnel vision on this, her being abducted before she got to the house.
If you enjoyed this and want to continue the journey, please subscribe to The Toll. The Toll Podcast, The Path Back Home, is a production of The Toll, LLC. Co-creator and host, Nancy Simpson. Co-creator and executive producer, Jay Lashley. Technical producer and audio editor, Kat Morgan Gaines. Marketing manager, Pamela Shelby. Web design and digital creative director, Shelby Powers. Technical analyst for digital strategy, Christina Oswald. Special thanks to Eliza Blackwood, transcriptionist, and Austin Robertson, voiceover. Original theme by Jay Lashley. Additional music by FirstCom. Reproduction or use of any part of this podcast without the express permission of the Toll LLC is prohibited. Get updates at our website, thetollpodcast.com.